This is the continuation of the series where I'm talking about physical evidence or direct evidence versus circumstantial evidence. And a light bulb went off when someone came into the comments and said, not just in the house, but there should have been physical evidence everywhere. And there just isn't any. And so it's a question of, did the police not look, or did it not exist? So let me just throw some things out to you and you decide if this is weird or not. Let's start with the home. Now, normally when there is some sort of crime in the home, and by the way, in the beginning, remember, they arrived for a missing person situation. So it could have been a kidnapping, it could have been a runaway, right? She could have left, or he could have physically harmed her. The police didn't find anything in the home. So there was no blood. There was no hair. There was no body fluids. And I don't mean to sound morbid, but typically a dead body releases like urine and some other things. So there would have been some sort of fluids. They couldn't find any evidence of any of that or a cleanup of anything of that. They found no signs of a struggle, no signs of a break-in. There was nothing broken. There was nothing missing. There was nothing out of place. Scott didn't have any defensive wounds. He wasn't scratched. He wasn't bit. He wasn't bruised. His hair wasn't pulled out. His clothing wasn't ripped. He didn't have any hairs or fiber or anything on him. They tested him for gunpowder residue. Didn't have any of that. So they had no physical evidence in the home. Now, what they submitted into court was the idea, and I kind of talked about this in the last video, is they said, well, we think she died between this time, and we think that maybe this happened. And then here's what their scenario is. Their scenario is that he wrapped her in the tarp, that he dragged her out of the house, that he put her into the truck, into the bed of the truck, and that he put the umbrellas on top of her. Now, again, a lot of you are saying, well, what's to make you think he didn't put her in the cab or in that big green toolbox thing? Because that's not what the police said. The police said he laid her in the back of the truck and he put the umbrellas on top of her to disguise her. And then he drove to the warehouse. Now, there was no evidence of her found in the truck either. So again, wouldn't there have been some type of bodily fluids? Wouldn't there be hair, saliva? Wouldn't there be skin cells? Wouldn't there be like fingerprints, her face imprint, something of her being in that tarp or in that truck? There was just no trace of her. He drove to the warehouse, again, in broad daylight. And the warehouse is only, I think they said it was a little over 3 miles away. So it's about a 10-minute drive. And they have one cell phone tower, and it's nothing like it is today, but they had like a cell phone tower that could triangulate his location. And right at the time he said he was driving there, they were able to triangulate. Yep, he was on that path. He was somewhere between those two locations at right around that time. But during that 3-mile drive, and I don't know how remote it was, but I'm surprised that he never drove past not one traffic camera, not one bank with an ATM camera, not one gas station, nor did he pass one other person on the road that would have seen him and seen a guy driving on Christmas Eve with patio umbrellas in the back of his truck. The police even appealed to the public. Did anybody see him? And nobody saw him. There's no sign of him during that 10-minute drive. He gets to the warehouse, and again, even though his warehouse and most of the warehouses around there, I believe, are used for business, Scott had thousands of dollars worth of product and a forklift and other things in there of value, but he didn't have any cameras. There doesn't seem to be any cameras in the parking lot or in any of the adjacent warehouses. None of that seemed to exist, right? Or at least we didn't hear about any. There was nothing put into evidence that there would have been some sort of gate that he had to enter into, swipe a key card, push a number, anything to get in. So there's no evidence really from the police that he came and went at that particular time. It was just really essentially that was Scott's story and the timing worked. So I think that's what was submitted into evidence. When Scott gets there, keep in mind, he's got a dead body in his truck. And he can't pull it into the warehouse. So the truck, here's the garage door. The truck just has to back up and he has to open the garage door and attach it to the boat. So the truck is sitting outside the entire time. Now he has to move the body. We believe he moved the body from the bed of the truck into the boat. We think Maybe he left it in the truck. The police never said. She's either in the truck or she is moved to the boat. Now, according to some of you, when you came in the comments, you said, well, of course he could move her around because rigor has sort of worn off by now. So when he goes to scoop her up out of the truck, she's now a little flimsy. So he's carrying her from the back of the truck in broad daylight, from the back of the truck into the boat, and he puts her in the boat. Nowhere along the way is there hair, body fluid, anything, no clothing fibers, nothing falls off of her, no skin cells, nothing is found on the ground anywhere. Puts her in the boat, and none of that stuff is found in the boat, except for one hair, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. But there's nothing in the boat that's evidence that she was even in the boat. He checks emails for an hour, so he's not in a huge hurry to dispose of a dead body. The garage door is open, so if she's in the truck or she's in the boat, it's still somewhat exposed if anybody were to come around, but he's checking emails and he's doing some other stuff online for an hour. He drives to the marina, and again, this is a 90-mile drive, and he's on an interstate. He's on Interstate 580 most of the way. Let's say 75 miles of it is interstate. No traffic cameras. There isn't a single person driving down the road that saw him because the police appealed. The police put up his picture and said he was driving from Modesto to the marina. Did anybody see him? Not a single person thought it was weird. You all think it's weird that he's fishing on Christmas Eve, but nobody would see him on the road and go, why is that guy going to the marina? Why is that guy dragging his boat around on Christmas Eve? Someone would have remembered it because it's a very unusual sighting. No one came forward. Not a single traffic camera, not a single freeway exit had a gas station, a bank, any type of building that had a camera on it. There's no evidence, no physical evidence of him making the drive. Either, and some of you are saying maybe he went the night before, maybe he did, but there's no physical evidence. The police were not able to put any physical evidence. They made a big case about Amber being the mistress and that he was obsessed with her, but did they ever provide any evidence that Scott was even at her house? Amber says, oh, he came over and he stayed the night. Sure, that's her story. Is there any evidence that he was there? They didn't provide us with any. The very first night they met, they checked into a hotel. Why isn't there camera footage? Was there testimony from the person at the front desk? I get that that doesn't matter in the murder trial, but if you're trying to layer on evidence and say that he was obsessed with someone else and that was the part of the reason he killed his wife, why wouldn't you prove all of those times that he was with that other person? Before I run out of time, let me talk about the hair. So one hair was found in the boat. I did a video about mitochondrial DNA, but let's get into this. Mitochondrial DNA can match to within a group of people. And in this case, they said that that hair could belong to one of every 112 white people or one of every 156 Hispanic people. So let's just do the math. Just the state of California. The population in 2002 was 34.87 million people living in California. 35% of them were Hispanic, 46% of them were white, which means there was 12.2 million Hispanics and 16 million white people just in California. So with those odds, that hair could have belonged to 78,205 different Hispanic people, or that hair could have belonged to 142,857 white people. Now, I know that Scott didn't have 142,000 white people in his warehouse. I know that, you know that, we can all agree on that. So let's pretend for argument it was Lacey's, but you can't prove that in court. And so again, as a juror, that might give me doubt. So that's what this is about, is whether or not Candy has doubt. And Candy has some doubt. I'm digging into the financials now because there was rumor that his business was failing. There was rumors that they were bleeding money. I'm going to get into it in the next series of videos.